everybody. I'm Christine Barr, and this is Today Over Tea, where we have real conversations about things that matter. I'm a dancer, businesswoman, traveler, and host. And today we're creating an open-minded space with hopes of spreading awareness and education through similar experiences. I'm going to introduce you to some of the most passionate and knowledgeable people in my life. 2020 is the time to own who you are, reach your highest potential, and just love your life. Because let's face it, we're all going through something, but it's time to evolve as a society. We need to spread more kindness and love for each other and this planet. So let's start the conversation. We're literally coming into this just laughing because that when we all get together, that's how it goes. Thanks, babe. That's how it goes. First of all, this is probably I'm so happy to have both of you here. First of all, I want to thank you. I've reached out to you. We've been trying to do this for 3 years.
3 years.
Because Today Over Tea was going to be our podcast 3 years ago. And we all got into amazing things in our careers and personal lives and life that was going in a positive direction. And I was like, and you'll hear all about what they're doing. And I was like, let's run with that. And I got to a place where I was like, Steven's like, do you still have all those domains? I was like, I do. And I was like, we got to do something about it. So the fact that we're all even here just to do one episode is just awesome.
So excited.
So exciting. And so let's address the big T here. So so it is Today Over Tea. I've been doing this with 2 people instead of 3 people, and now I had to go to Ross and buy a big cup, and so now he's like, this is definitely your show. And I'm like, no, this is our show.
No, she doesn't want me to mention the llama on the other side of the cup.
You're crazy.
Llama.
Llama. It's holidays, guys. Okay, so let's dive into it. I want to talk first about how we met and how just kind of, because that goes into why we all have these conversations all the time. We met having a conversation like this.
Is this true?
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we met because we were working with a couple life coaches. They had organized almost like a mastermind. But it was really cool because it was a generational mastermind. It wasn't just, a lot of people doing really cool things in one area, but actually multiple people from across all generations. And it wasn't just talking about interesting things, it was actually solving problems that came up. We filled out cards and actually discussed, hey, I'm having this problem, or it was anonymous, and this person is having this problem in this age range. What do the other generations have to say about that? And every time one of us spoke, the other one was like, I was going to say that.
Yeah. Mind you, we didn't know each other before this conversation.
Right.
And we were just like, wait, why do I keep coming back to that?
So right after the event was over, we just went up to each other. We're like, okay, we have to hang out. Like, that was a done deal. We were going to be in each other's lives, whether we wanted to or not. And so,
how many people can you say that about? That's just crazy. That's so true.
Not too many.
Yeah.
I'm kind of stuck with Will very similarly.
I know. And then you introduced me to Will, and I was like, what? Like, there's more people like this? Like, this is amazing.
So I met Will actually at a networking conference, and I was actually almost out the door. I was literally about to get on the escalator, and someone had run up and was like, hey, hold on. And I was like, uh-oh, am I in trouble? Usually my first thought, because usually it's true. And he was like, oh, I didn't get your information. And so we swapped cards, and I saw that he'd worked for CenturyLink, and I was like, oh, well, that's interesting.
I know, when you were telling me that story again, I was like, oh, I'm just going to keep my CenturyLink opinions to myself.
Not there anymore.
Yeah, right. Just for
but yeah, it turns out that he was actually running a church, and a lot of his messaging, at that time I was running a company called Dreamin', which helped people find and accomplish their dreams, and what he was doing with his church was actually a lot of that, and what he was helping people with. And so we really connected on that level of helping people with where they're at and how to get to that kind of next plane. And that's what we really connected over. And yeah, that was an incredible journey. Even just coming to a church, understanding my background with churches and very strict religions, understanding that there was a place that was open, inclusive, and all the words that you hear or want to think about larger organizations, but never really are. So
That's true. Yeah, and then you were like, you have to meet my friend Will.
And he said the same about you.
Oh my God, you're so nice. So sweet. And we both, like, the three of us just came together. And so the conversations, like, that's what brought upon this entire thing, is we were having these conversations. We were like, we need to set up a camera and just film this, because this is, like, deep.
It was at Rainforest Cafe, wasn't it?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, we did do a Rainforest Cafe.
We did do a Rainforest Cafe.
And so during this dinner, we had covered every topic imaginable. Most that you should not be repeating in polite company.
But we were fine. Like, we loved
it was
having,
great.
this is who we were. We were very, and it was a great night. There was no judgment. There was like,
Yeah.
this is what we were trying to do. And yeah.
The controversialness of it was, we were talking about things where, you know, if you had put that out there, there would have been a lot of people that were, it was very polarizing.
Right,
and there would have been issues and
backlash,
people upset. And how could you talk about that? And how could you say these things?
Right.
Whereas we came at it from we want a solution. We want something better for anyone.
Or
Also,
I didn't think of it that way. Tell
Yeah.
me where you're coming from. Like, that's so interesting that you think that way. You
and
know?
being completely recognizing that I have a completely different view of something
Sure.
because of everything, because of upbringing, because of where you are at
Whatever,
currently,
yeah.
the experiences you've had, and that will always be different to someone sitting
Right.
across some tea.
I mean, tea makes everything better. Can
It
we just
does.
say
Yes.
that, right? So then when we came up with, I don't even remember how we came up with the name. Does anyone remember how we
Your brother.
Stop it.
That was it.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God, he's gonna love to hear that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
He came up with the name, yeah, and we were just like, oh my God, and that name's not taken. Like, we were so excited.
That was the most shocking part to me.
Yeah, because Steven works in like all the tech and startups and stuff, and so he's like, the first thing he does, he has like, you know, domains.com or whatever, checking all the handles, like.
And it was available, and I was like, no way. So
Crazy. So yeah, so, you know, cut to our lives were doing amazing things, and, you know, it was hard to get us all in the same room, and so, you know, we just kept moving along, and I got to a place that I was like, we gotta, you know. Also, I think what hit it for me is, you know, Jada started doing Red Table Talk.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
Right?
Very
He knows.
successful.
Very
Yeah.
successful. Well, she's Jada. She's going to be successful doing anything. But that, and then there are some podcasts, like, I don't know if you know, Ashley Graham is doing Pretty Big Deal. It's a podcast, and she's interviewing celebrities, but they're getting so deep into it. Like, she had one with Gabrielle Union where she's talking about, you know, certain things about race and all these things that she's been through in her book. And I was like, yeah, this needed to happen 3 years ago, but it still needs to happen now. And this conversation, like, these conversations need to be had. And so I was like, we got to get this going. So then I reached out to them, and I was like, I need you to do something for me. And they're like, anything, what do you need? And I was like, oh, I love you. You guys are amazing.
Well, it's like that little saying, you know, what was the best day to plant a tree? And it was 20 years ago. What's the second best today?
Today. Oh, I like that.
And over tea.
And over tea. So, okay.
You guys will get sick of that.
I
by the
know,
end
we're
of
gonna
this.
make
There
all
will
the
be all
puns.
the tea puns. You're welcome.
Okay, so let's talk about, we're going to hit a couple of topics, but I want to start by talking, because I want you to introduce kind of what you've done and a little bit of your journey, because, you know, again, we're talking about the stuff that everyone's like, don't say that out loud.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, when I say that I have a friend who is gay, black, and a pastor, they're like, what does that even look like in 2019? And I'm like, let me tell you something. He's one of the best people you'll ever meet. And that to them just, it does not, I hate that it's not fathomable for them, but then like, it meeting you, like, it's just, I just want you to touch on all
First,
of
it's amazing that I'm the conservative one at the table. That never happens. So.
Oh, that's
yeah.
funny.
Fair. I did not think about it.
That's really
Again,
funny.
these perspectives. Yeah.
True.
But just who I am is who I am, and I never really thought about all the different labels or boxes, because I really don't fit the typical mold for any of them.
That's true.
So
That's very true.
I definitely don't come from the typical black experience. I didn't do the whole gay lifestyle thing. Like, I've been married since 18 to the same dude.
Who's
which is rare.
amazing. We love him.
He's all right. No, he's fantastic.
And Steven's girlfriend is here too, behind the scenes. Her name's Jenny. Shout out to Jenny and Jay.
Yeah, and then the whole pastor thing, like, the way that I pastor isn't like what other people think of when they think of a pastor, because I actually do include people and let people think for themselves and come up with rad ideas that just work for everyone.
Which is amazing. When we first met, I came to, or you're not in the same location anymore, I'm
No,
sure. I'm
no.
sure you've grown and moved up and all those things, but it was just incredible just to see you and your husband up there just speaking and how we were able to all be, I mean, it was incredible to look around the room and see everyone that was there. Like all the diversity, it just felt like the most safe, happy, like inclusive space, just like what you were saying, just inclusive. And that is such a rare space to be in today.
And it's
I
hard.
I hate to say that.
It's
because
still hard.
It's still hard.
Yeah.
But how do you feel, like how are you able to create such a space like that when the world around us is not as tolerant?
You know, it's really the key to it is love. And that's probably a very Will thing to say, right? But
Yes.
But it really is when people feel that they are loved no matter what. Unconditional love will solve all the world's problems and open all the doors. It's one of those things that people can feel. It's not something that you can fake or manufacture. It's something that has to be real and that people can actually grab onto. And that's what makes the space safe, is they know that no matter what, at least Pastor Will loves me. Like everyone else maybe will throw stones, but that's what really makes it work.
Which honestly sounds like a platitude. You know, like everyone's heard unconditional love, or oh, this organization loves you, or something.
Love is the answer, yeah.
But there's always a but. Like,
Sure.
and we always feel that, like, cause you know, like even if you really want to believe, like, Ben, that was one of the first times where it was like, no, it's actually he is giving exactly what he's saying.
What he's
which
saying, yeah.
was odd and new, and I was like, okay.
Right.
Let's,
he's walking the walk. He's talking the talk and walking the walk.
Yep.
Yeah,
Definitely.
which is, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is, especially when I met both of you, is that you were some of the first people I had met, maybe not the first people I had met, but just like in this rare place where you were saying things that were so big ideas, big dreaming, and you were doing them.
Yeah.
Like the next day or the next week, like you're like, oh, cool, like, and this is where we've kept going with it, and I'm like, wait, what? Because I grew up in a family like that where it's like you say something, you do it, and they're big, grandiose ideas and all this stuff, but you don't meet people like that. And I don't know if your experience is different, but I just don't meet people like that.
Well, I've noticed, particularly traveling around the world to a lot of, the larger, communities and areas and like, metropolitan areas. And not that Vegas is big, but it is still considered a larger city.
Sure.
Out of most of the places in the world, Vegas talk is cheap, and it's what you present yourself as, and it's how you look, and it's all this reputation that isn't really built on anything solid.
Sure.
But that's kind of what Vegas is. Like, you can come in and you can be anyone you want for that night or for that week, and it's okay. Yeah. And so the things that, I love about the city are also the things that don't lead to that, where it is everyone's expecting you to be here, even if you're not, and so you kind of have to pretend to be something much larger, and then it all kind of falls apart, and then people are dealing with depression and anxiety, and it's, kind of like what we were talking a little bit about earlier with social media and things, how there is this thing that you have to live up to, and if you're not, all of a sudden you're a terrible person, or you're not worthy, and it's like, you're wherever you are, just be there. Right. And I think that's what we had to learn, when we were younger, or whenever we learned it, of I can't be anywhere else but where I'm at. But it led
because we see people doing so many things at our age and younger now.
Right.
Like, 21-year-old billionaires, all that stuff that we see on social media, we know what exists, but even me, I've looked at it and been like, oh man, like, I just turned 30, like, I'm not where I wanted to be, or I'm not, but like you said, look at everything that we've done. You still have your own church?
Yes.
Okay. A couple of other things, like key points, accomplishments in your life.
So I work with a major nonprofit, the oldest health nonprofit in the U.S. I have my own business where I do speaking and coaching, do weddings. That's really fun.
Wait, do you officiate?
I officiate. Yeah, so when you're ready.
Oh my goodness. Good to know.
But those are the major things. Really, the thing I'm focused on at the moment is really building my brand and the awareness of Will Rucker. I've spent so many years building organizations that now it's time to really build who I am, and I'm excited about that.
Which is, and I'm thinking, gosh, look at what you've done already. You're thinking about just now starting to build. I'm thinking of everything he's already built. Right? It's just crazy. And then you are more on the tech side of things.
Yeah. Tech, business. I did some life coaching. That was around the time that you met me. And so, what I always say is I like to solve people problems with technology, and so that's kind of been, through all the different and various things that I've done.
Yeah.
That's usually what it really ends up coming back to. So amusingly enough, like right now, I am in a transition period. I'm spinning down one of my development companies, and I actually started working full time again for someone else, which has been interesting, but.
Yeah, because you worked for yourself for a while, and you were a part of a lot of startups, and every time I would hear him, he's always doing some new startup, some new thing, and it's going to be this, and I mean, it's the coolest stuff that you have your hands on that a lot of people don't even know is there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just so awesome.
Yeah, so right now, actually just kind of regrouping and figuring out, I've spent the last 3 years just heads down building really cool, crazy things, and I'm figuring out what that next big thing is, and so I am kind of in a, chill mode, if that's even possible.
Oh, well, good, because that makes me feel good. This is very therapeutic, because with all the entertainment, because those of you know, I come from the entertainment side, and I've done, titles and dancing and different things like that, and I just, I finally found the most amazing man that I'm with, and we've been together for 3 years. Oh my God, it's amazing, and we're engaged, and so, but, I mean, yeah, I just, the last 4 months have just been hitting a wall of just, what's the next step, With all the things that we accomplish over time, it's almost like life is meant to be in chapters, and I don't think that society teaches that.
That's a great way to put it. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right.
That's what I'm learning as over the next, you gotta hit a certain place to start learning things.
Spirals,
Right.
We talked about spirals recently. I call it the pendulum. And that swings from one to the other.
Pendulum's good. I use
but
that
actually, each
dance.
one of those creates the other one. A spiral goes on a pendulum. Chapters swing, and it has its rises and falls. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, see? 3 different ways of looking at the same thing, guys. That's what we're trying to tell you.
This has never happened with us before.
Wink, wink. Yeah, so that's amazing. So with all of our accomplishments and all that we do, but still showing how social media plays into that. I use social media for my business a lot.
Yeah.
Right, it's very important.
You are amazing with social media.
You're so very sweet. It's a lot of work.
I love watching your life. Do I really know her?
And I'm sitting there I don't post ever. I just
my God, wait.
I share everyone else's.
Yeah, I was like, I don't post ever is no. My fiance is now laughing in the corner because now he's following you on Facebook. And this man will repost the most hilarious memes. He's just your happiness of the day. You are just literally I love that. That is so awesome.
Well, one of the things I noticed is I've been on other people's Facebooks because I'm always curious, what does your wall look like?
Yeah.
Because to me it should be this curated experience of what you want to see.
That's such a millennial thing to say. What does your wall look like?
Well, because it's fascinating because I kind of see it as a window into who their friends are and it's kind of that whole thing your life isn't driven by your closest connections, it's their weaker connections because there's so many of them, and those are the influences. One of the analogies is if you're on the highway. And it's not the cars immediately next to you that are slowing you up or speeding you down. It's all the ones around them. And so that's kind of what social media is. So going on someone's wall, it's what are you being influenced by on a daily basis? Right. And I go on some people and I'm like, this is the most depressing thing ever.
It's terrible.
People
who you know in real life, I'm I'll look at the same thing, I'll look at their wall and I'm like, they're sharing every political post possible. They're sharing everything that they're feeding into kind of the tunnel of what social media is, and I'm like, that's not who you are in person. What is happening?
Yeah. Or maybe it is. I know for me, people I thought I knew, now looking at their Facebook or their Instagram or their Twitter, I see them and I'm like, who are these people? And it boggles my mind because I'm like, we come from the same experience. We used to share tea together. Now you're crazy. So
is that the new Breaking Bread? Are we just sharing
tea?
I
mean, it's the healthier option.
Less calories.
No gluten. We're good.
Oh, exactly.
So it ended up becoming this, and I didn't realize I was doing it, but I thank you unfollow. Without the unfollow button, my world would be completely different. And so it was just anytime I would see something like this, it's I still appreciate it as a person, but what I'm reading is affecting me in my life, and I don't want to see that.
And I'm not going to put that in my space. Yeah.
So I first started by going and liking a bunch of very more spiritual, uplifting kind of things. Mm-hmm. And then every once in a while they would kind of slip in something funny, and I was I kind of like that. And so then it actually went to spiritual, uplifting memes. And then I just kind of got hooked, and so now it's anytime I see a hilarious meme, I go the page, and so now that's my entire feed. So instead of because I hear a lot Facebook, especially from a mental place, it's actually more draining. People see it as a break, but it'd actually be a lot better to just take 5 minutes and meditate. instead of just going and checking Facebook. So it becomes a
100%.
drain. And I was like, I don't want it to be that. And so now anytime I go and check it, I'm like, ha ha ha, and then I'm good.
And you're good.
And so it's not
Yeah.
a drain, it's not a, but I know a lot of people that it is.
It is.
And so I didn't realize this was a thing, but it was just recently my birthday, and like in birthday comments, people were like, keep that up, like thank you so much. And I'm like, how bad is your feed that I'm the only like...
Right. The changing job format. My mom is a teacher in school, and she was telling me a story about how she's trying to guide her students and how they're saying, you know, should I go to college? Because that's a question today.
Yeah.
And she's an educator. She has 2 master's degrees, has dedicated her whole life to the educational system. And she's like, but there's a part of me inside now that says, don't do that. You're going to be $50,000 in debt and may not even have a job at the end of it.
Yeah.
So she goes, but I can't tell people that. So how do you feel like with us kind of being, I feel like, dropped in the center of it? Do you feel like, what is the path maybe? I mean, we don't know the path, but what is maybe your advice, things you've picked up along the way? You know what I mean? Will, if you want to start.
Yeah, no, education is, for me, a hugely important thing still. And as the
And
black...
I think also, sorry to cut you, how we define education.
Yeah.
Because education in a school.
Formal education.
Right, but versus how
Yeah.
education, I think, how we're getting our education now by doing on the job, real life experience, mentorship,
Yep.
Yeah.
right, things like that. Like, I don't feel like the school system understands that kind of thing, but keep going.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
But as the black guy at the table, it's different for me. Yeah, no, it just
Different for
it
me.
just
He's not
is.
wrong.
He's not wrong.
Because I have to have a credential
Yeah.
in order to even be allowed through the door.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whereas family background for others may do that, or
Right.
generational
Or
wealth.
just the name on the resume.
Or the
So
name
that's
on the
always
resume.
been that's been a fascinating thing for me from a sociological standpoint of if you have a white name on a resume, you will get in the door without that credential, but if you sound black on paper, the percentages just show, like, they've done so many studies.
That's crazy.
I was at a Berkeley lecture about that, and it's like, you can just see the percentages. No picture, no, like, nothing attached. That was the only difference on the resume.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So for me, it's very important, and I'm saddled with student loan debt, which is fun, not. So it's one of
Yeah.
those
It's that
things.
avocado toast is the reason that, you're
You know,
behind on
avocado
things.
toast and those cruises too. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I think that it's still very important. But now, because the world is so wide open through technology and through the arts, that really you can make a living, a great life, even without that formal college education.
Right. Or just get it in an alternative way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't always have to be in a classroom.
Yeah.
You know, like I was here listening to a podcast the other day talking about how he was taking his kids out of school because they were learning about like Paul Revere's trail and all that stuff. He's like, I took them to Boston and they walked Paul Revere's trail.
Yes.
Like, he goes,
Yes.
they could tell the teacher more about it than the teacher knew.
Well, homeschooling scares me.
No, I agree with you on
Yeah.
that. I think it was pieces of it. Like,
Okay.
they were in school, but then like they were able to travel a lot, so he wanted
Yeah.
them to get experiences in life. But I agree with you. That's a little because there's something about the way you grow up in public school where you're able to do extracurriculars and talk to people and gain social skills and, you know, first crushes and just life things that you go through. That's such a
Yeah.
girl thing to say, but but you know what I mean? Life things that you go through that you're right. If you're in homeschool, like some of those things just may not happen organically.
For
Yeah.
sure.
You know what I mean?
But depending on the school you attend, you may
True.
still get those experiences.
True.
I know for me, I was able to go to Washington, D.C. with my class.
Oh,
and
wow.
We would go down to Florida to the Everglades and just all
Nice.
across the U.S. to Paris. You know.
You went to
so-
Paris in school?
Yeah, in
Where'd you go to school?
So I don't remember what school I was in for that. That might have been high school.
Wow.
Or it might have been middle
That's,
school.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but that's just what we
amazing.
did. We traveled as a class and just
Right.
That's
saw the
incredible.
world and experienced. But you
We
go-
were on like a nasty, smelly bus going to Chicago to sing at,
I did get to go to Catalina, but
Okay.
You reminded me.
You went
It's
to
through the
school in
arts.
California.
no, here. Vegas.
Oh,
I
in
grew up
Vegas.
in Las Vegas.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Vegas is
Yeah, yeah, and so that's right. But he's right through the arts.
Yeah.
Through the arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, those are programs that, whether they're cutting, they're not cutting. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation.
I mean, I actually had that. My program that I was in college actually got cut, like, while I was still working through it. So I actually took my, like, 400 level, like, finishing classes prior to my gen eds, and that's why it ended up taking me, like, 4 or 5 years extra to graduate, because who wants to take those? Right. Especially when I learned all the things I wanted to learn.
Gen eds.
Yeah.
I used algebra yesterday. No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Parallelogram season. Glad we learned that.
Hey, I'm not talking on formal education either. Yeah. But the life skill, the things that have allowed me to be better in an interview, to speak in public, to get to the people that I want to talk to give me opportunities and open doors. I don't feel like the classes in school are the things that taught me that. I think it was the life skills that I had with my family, my upbringing. My dad owned a dance studio. That was a whole other culture in school. It was a dance school, but it taught me more than just dance. You know what I mean? Like, so many things that kind of went into all of that allowed me to have some of the skills that a lot of people don't grow up with, I feel.
Right. Yeah, and I actually learned most of those on my own. My dad, very, very educated, so I've actually had this conversation.
Because your upbringing, if we can touch just a little bit, your religious upbringing was?
Mormon. So I grew up Mormon,
right.
And Dad is a cardiologist, so education has always been a huge thing. So education and religion were the two biggest things growing up. And so now I have this question.
Just meeting you, I'm sorry. It's like we had to tell people that at first because it's just so different.
So now I have this question because college for me it was never a question. You're going to college. That's what you're doing. There was no like go off and do something else like that. Just no, like this is what you're doing.
Right.
It wasn't even like a thought in our mind. Like in high school, it was okay. I'm doing this because I'm going to college. There was never anything else could happen.
To get a job.
Right.
Or career.
Whatever you want, whatever the kids are calling it these days. And so, but now, like, I'm seeing this, so, like, I had a full-time job, like, second year into college, I'd already figured out my career and everything else, and so, for me, I was kind of like, if I was, telling my kid to go to college, like, can I actually justify that? And so I was talking to him about it, and it was great because he was kind of like, everyone likes to give those examples of, Bill Gates dropped out and whatever.
Of course.
Mark Zuckerberg, what have you.
Yep.
And it was like, yeah, but they knew what they were going to do. They had that path.
They had a vision, they had a plan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And even if it changed, like, they were heading in that direction.
Right.
But a lot of people use that as kind of I'm not going to go to college because it's just going to be expensive. And now we're hitting that point of like, is the debt worth it? Because more and more people are getting college degrees. And it's inflated by the ability to get student loans, and so that's going through the roof. And so there's so many problems there that we'll just gloss over.
Yeah.
But aside from the systematic issues, I think that it is both. Because you do get so much out of college. Like you were saying, the social aspects and things like that. I know it's so much harder for me to spend a month deep diving into 8 different topics and really getting a huge grasp of each one of them than it was in college. Because you were with people who were doing the same thing. You had that community, you had those resources, you had everything there. Outside of that, you have to create that for yourself. Now I have a network of people, the people I hang out with are constantly learning, and so I have that reinforcement. But it is a very different thing, like if there was just, and that's why I think a lot of vocational schools are popping back up and things like that. Because that's where school kind of started, right? It was vocational. You go to learn a trade, you go to learn a specific thing, and then it turned into more academia and things like that.
General education,
Right, and then it completely moved away from that, where it's, now it's just a diploma mill.
So, we were taking a little tea break here, and we started talking about, Noelle was like, hey, guys, get up, stretch, do what you need to do, and typical us, we just get right back into a different conversation. And the conversation we got into was more political, and I do have to say, of all of the topics that I want to do for these 11 episodes, politics is the one I don't want to do, and it's not because of the controversialness of it, it's because I don't feel like there's a way to move forward with it at this point. And that's not to say but I just wanted to address that here because I feel like with what we're talking about with like fear and, being good enough in the changing world, I'm doing some on fitness, some on, diet, holistic health, all that kind of stuff. There's like
tricks and tools and things that people can be like, oh my gosh, I learned something. Like I can actually like apply that to my life and do something with it. But with politics, I feel like it's like, okay, someone says who they are, someone says who they are, we all talk about it. What happens? Like, we're not going to change the political system by you know what I mean?
So
how do you feel about that?
Okay.
I'm just curious.
No, it's really interesting that you said it that way about
Yeah.
politics, because I feel that way about religion. So one of
Okay.
the things I did not mention is,
Because that's your wheelhouse.
I'm on the board of the Interfaith Council here in Southern Nevada.
Wow.
So all the various
Just
traditions.
another one of
come
add to
together.
the list of
Yeah, I forget. You know, if I don't check my calendar, I don't know. But one of the things I said behind closed doors, and now apparently publicly, is that interfaith just doesn't work because people show up and they don't actually present the true core values and beliefs of their faith. We work towards a greater purpose and a mission, but we're not truly interfaith. We're like just there. And it's the same with politics. Nobody ever actually changes their mind or moves.
No.
It's just whoever can grab the power at the moment.
Right, and I think the thing is that with these conversations, the whole starting the conversation is not to change anyone's mind. It's just to educate.
Yeah, I mean, so like in my world, we just kind of actually skip over most of it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, because in the tech world, it's been like,
Yeah.
we operate in a different world until we collide with politics, and then we get into it in full force. You know,
Yeah.
like Google has so many lobbyists and things like that.
Oh, wow.
But it's all for those things, and so like a lot of the opinions expressed are that, you know, kind of multinational companies are the next governments, because they're the, you know, especially the way that the U.S. is set up, where you're beholden to your employer for insurance, for all these other things. It's really set up that your company is the one that takes care of you, not necessarily the government. And that's actually skewed a lot of you know, things that have happened over time, you know, because there isn't a lot of safety net, and the safety nets that are there aren't. That's a whole other topic of conversation.
I feel like we're always going to say, that's a whole other wheelhouse.
That's
Yeah.
another cup of tea.
That's another
Ooh,
But
I
that
like
deals
that.
with
Yeah.
the youngins, as we were.
Yes.
You know, the folks growing up now don't have a pension, and they don't have that longevity at their same employer for 40 years with a retirement
That's so
plan.
true.
Now you have to innovate and reinvent yourself.
But it's also what we've been looking for, because we saw, you know, 2008, we saw these crashes where those pension plans, those things that were supposed to be there, Social Security, that they're not going to. And so it's also a matter of self-preservation of what can I do that's different, because, you know, the average person, I think they switch jobs every, 2 years or something like that?
3 years, something like that.
It used to be
And we're
between-
especially on the west side with, you know,
Yeah.
Vegas and California, where people are constantly changing jobs.
Vegas is the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Just
All the
a couple
time.
months.
Right.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. What do I want to do this month? You know, like, yeah.
How am I feeling?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
But what's crazy is that the world is allowing us to do that and to
Yeah.
experiment. I think I have conversations a lot with some of my family members where they never had that, right? They kind of did what your dad did. They were like, well, you're going to college, you're going to do this, and that's all fine and dandy. We kind of all did that in our own way, but we knew that if we moved across the country and we didn't like it, we can move back.
Yeah.
If we went to college and didn't like it, like I went for a year and I was like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't even the college thing. It was I got into the top school for interior design. Only 15 people were accepted. It was the top in the nation. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be an interior designer.
Yeah.
And I went there and they were like, everything was about landscape and architectural stuff because it was, that goes into it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but let's try, push through because it's the first year and then eventually I'm going to get into the fun stuff. And the seniors came back and they started talking to us and they were like, yeah, so we're designing hospitals and hotel lobbies. And I was like, what? I was like, no, hang on. Like, some of you are doing mansions and residential. No, the
Yeah.
money's in the commercial. And I was like, I don't even want to be in a hospital as a patient, let alone
Right.
as an employee. Like, what are you talking about? So that,
Can you imagine ending up in your own hospital that you designed?
oh my God.
That sounds like my own version of hell.
I was just going to say, like, yeah.
Like,
Oh, that sounds terrible.
oh,
So,
that color's so off.
why did it do that? Yeah. And so I was like, wait a minute. Like, I was 6 months into this program that was a 4-year program. I was like, I got to make some decisions. Is this really what I want to do? And luckily I had the support and the upbringing that I could change my mind. I think a lot of people are scared to do that. They're like, I'm so scared that, I won't have stability if I don't. When I dropped out, people were like, oh, dropped out. I transferred to a community college. I didn't drop out.
Yeah.
But when they were like, oh my gosh, you're throwing away your big shot. You were accepted at 15 people. And I was like, to this day, I'm like, that was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
But that was the best decision for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
everyone is different, and what
Yeah.
you have to go with your gut. You know what I'm saying?
As long as your gut's not driven by ego.
Well,
I think
that's
because
a good point.
so everything that you were saying is absolutely true, but there is also the flip side of that, where there are people that when things get a little bit hard, they get that feeling of, oh well, I'm gonna look bad, like I might fail at this, so I'm gonna not do it, and then they say, oh, I was just trusting my gut, that wasn't right for me. And then you watch this person or these people just bounce, and that's why the gig economy, which everyone throws around that term, but it is that. It's these things that someone can get into really easily, doesn't require a lot of skill or anything, and they can come in and go, and so it's always kind of there.
Yeah.
But most of these things aren't sustainable. They aren't things that you can treat as a career. You can if you get into the top 1%. Like I was talking to this Uber driver, and he was like, he had his whole car decked out, and he was like, when I got into this, I decided I was going to be the top 1%. Wow. And so he just ran with it. The guy used to run an import-export business. And so it was like, he knew what it was to get into something and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it work, and work through it. Because I'm sure there were times that was absolutely horrendous. He wanted to quit, he didn't like it.
Sure.
But it takes that, when do you quit, when do you not? And I think that's really the crux that we're kind of figuring out right now, because there are people on both sides, the people that have slogged through in something like they stuck with interior design. They stuck with med school.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at the people like now, obviously, that are way graduated and into their careers. How would I have enjoyed that lifestyle?
Right.
Would I have wanted to do that? Or would I have gotten the degree, been in a ton of debt, and now, started working for a firm, made my own? I don't even know. 10 years later, am I still happy, or am I going to change my career anyway?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Which is fine. I guess that's 10 years of, I made a good career for myself, but I was trying to figure it out earlier to make sure that I wasn't bouncing around.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Have you had some of those kind of like fears of like, I mean, of course, I'm sure you have, right?
Oh yeah. No, for me, it's
But
more about
specifically.
following my inner compass, so to speak.
Yeah,
But
that's
also,
such a prettier way to say it than your gut.
Yeah. My bowels.
My inner compass.
Whenever my IBS flares up, I just go with that.
But part of it is, you're told by your parents this is the way you should go, and then your friend group may influence you, and then you have your own desires that, well, I really want to be a this, but then fear creeps in.
Yeah.
And it's like, can I really do that? Is this even really possible for me? Yeah, I see Kim Kardashian doing it, or I don't know who's famous nowadays. But
Right. No, you're right on target still.
Okay. Go Kim.
She ain't going anywhere.
But then you're like, can I really make a living at this? And I think we sometimes will tuck the end of the road into the background, because you do have to have something sustainable, and you won't always be young and virile. You will get older, and your body does deteriorate. That's just the way it works.
Right.
And if you don't have
don't
nothing,
believe it. No, just
figure.
Secret formula in the back.
But the only things that I regret are really the things I didn't pursue. And so that's kind of the life that I'm living now and going forward. I'm going for it. Whatever comes up, whatever's in my heart, I'm going for that. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and I try something else. And it's okay.
That's okay. I think a lot of people, I think it's more favorable now because of social media and all things. So we can talk about the positive things that social media did.
Yeah.
But I think what's been scary is the first thing you said is when your parents tell you this. Well, we're going to end up being parents. What are we going to tell our kids?
And the world
it's going to be so different.
Yeah.
The world they lived in doesn't exist now.
No, it doesn't.
And for us, the world we live in changes so rapidly that who knows what it's going to be like when we finally actually do have kids.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're adults.
That's so true. But like the fear of
the
like
singularity.
Yeah, but like explaining, I think the biggest thing is like someone was asking me like what brought on this whole thing, and one of the biggest things I said is I'm just kind of sick of explaining myself to people. But you know what I'm saying? And immediately people relate to that. They're like, oh yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. Like, I'm so sick of telling people, this is what I think, this is how I feel, this is how my job, what are you doing this month? You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to say that we're changing. We're still in the same fields, but we are working on different things all the time. And people are like, they don't understand, especially the older generation, how that works because they're with something, like you said, for 40 years. To get the benefits, to get all the stuff that society promises you. Yeah. And we're like, but we know we can have a better life and not do that.
Well, here's my question in that.
Yeah.
Can we? Because where is that safety net for retirement? if you don't have something
Right.
established, particularly again speaking as the black guy at the table,
Yeah.
right? and as the pastor, who
I'll drink to
pastors
that.
don't make,
exactly.
it's one of those things.
Yeah.
But what do you do when you run out of things you can do? If you haven't built a All I Want for Christmas Is You that gives you $60 million,
Oh, totally.
If you
Or
don't
just
have
the
it.
residual income.
The
I think
residual,
that's
yeah.
what we're trying to learn how to do, is that we are learning how to have a better quality of life and doing things that we actually love and are passionate about, and we're actually making a lot of money doing that.
Yeah.
But you're right. Are we creating residual income that's creating a business that's going to be there for us when we're old?
So yeah, I've had to explore this a ton, and a lot of it was fighting with my own personal opinions of work and
Yeah.
things like that. You know, one of the biggest things. So like I love the story of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He knew he wanted to be in acting, but he also knew that he was from a different country. He didn't have a support group here, and you know he was into bodybuilding, but that wasn't a career then either. And so it was,
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be acting. He loved bodybuilding, so he had a really tight knit community there. But he went into real estate, and that was
Wow.
his thing.
I did not know
That was how he supported what he wanted to do. And so a lot of people think like that, you know, oh, the starving artist mentality. No,
It doesn't have to be that
go
way.
find something that makes you money. Go
Right.
find something that, and the way I always look at it is, no matter what you go and do, you can find a way to like it. Like,
Sure.
you can find something in that realm that you enjoy. So like, let's say you know you need to be making a considerable amount of money. I mean, imagine how much better your acting career would be if you could actually invest in a movie. Guess who's getting that role? You
Right,
know,
right,
and how
right,
much
right.
does that help you? And unfortunately, the world is run by money. So you got to look into
Yeah.
finance, into these things, and go, okay, what can I do here that I would actually enjoy? You know, as an actor, hey, like talking to people, putting on a face, doing that whole thing, that's real estate. So that
Right.
fit really well. It wouldn't be the first thing that kind of comes to mind, but that's why I always say, like, go and find something in that area that you know you have to go do, and that will, and that's where you end up going and doing it. And it will be spurred by the thing that you love doing,
Right.
and then they'll grow together.
But I think a lot of people are not doing that because they're like, well, I'm supposed to be focusing on one thing. Like, that is also our generation, to be able to
Yeah.
say, I'm doing 5 different things,
Right.
and they're all making me money in some,
Yeah.
like, people ask me, what do I do? Well, what day is it?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing, our parents never did that.
Mm-hmm.
They did one thing, or they were studying for one thing, and now, I mean, if you have less than 2,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
But that's
everyone
not creating your own safety net.
It
If
is.
you have 3 things and some trend falls off or something, or you were an Instagram model and now they're not basing it off likes, you know, like, then all of a sudden
Totally.
that's gone. If you don't have 2 or 3 other things, then you're done. But if
What
each
do you
one of
do?
those things are making,
Right.
you know, $1,000 a month, which isn't that hard to do in the world of the internet.
It's not.
And that's
It's
and
not.
that's the kind of crazy thing that has shifted, is it is very easy to make ridiculous amounts of money
Oh my
on
gosh,
the internet.
crazy. Yeah.
But that comes back to the personal thing that I had to really fight with, because I mean, you know, I usually work like 18 hours a day, like, you know.
That's
but-
it?
Yeah. Right. Average.
Slacker.
But for me, it was always, I have to work to do something or build something or have that. It was never the concept of building something to just run on its own.
Money
'cause
working
it felt
for you.
weird to me. And now I'm just coming back around to that finally.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds
and
weird. I was
so-
like, that sounds
yeah.
exciting.
Right.
I need money to work for me because I'm tired of working for money.
But just taking that shift, like this year alone, has
Yeah.
reaped insane benefits. And I'm like, this is what everyone has been trying to tell me, and because everyone else in my field is just like, oh yeah, do the thing. And I'm like,
Do the thing.
That feels weird.
Do the thing.
That feels weird. And then I go and do it, and I'm like, so,
I get it.
yeah.
Yeah. That is not something that a lot of millennials are learning how to do because we don't have a financial education.
Yeah.
You know, and of course they don't teach you that in school, because if they teach you that in school, then you're going to know things, and then, you know,
Well, 'cause
government can't control you, blah, blah,
If a
blah.
teacher had residual income, they wouldn't be teaching.
They wouldn't be teaching. No one would be
hold
teaching.
on.
Okay.
That's,
Most
I like that.
generally.
That's the thing. So I don't work an hour a day, and I think we overvalue work. I
Okay.
just live my life. I
Yeah.
do the things that
Yeah.
come naturally and that I enjoy. And so, am I busy 18 hours a day? Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
But for me, it's not work. And
Fair.
the other side of that is, I think there's this idea that if people just had the money they needed, they wouldn't do anything. Well, I mean,
Yeah, I
look
disagree with
at the Amazon guy and
Right.
you know, all these billionaires that do exist, and there are thousands now. When a few years ago there weren't.
Yeah.
There
You know, and they're still working.
Yeah.
But not just working. Now they have now that their expenses are taken care of and their life, stuff is good.
They're thriving.
They're innovating.
They're innovating.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is that now they can work on their passion projects.
Yeah.
Because I mean, hello, this is a passion project of mine, and we're fitting it into different things, but it's not currently, on my payroll. Do you know what I'm saying?
We don't get paid for this?
I know.
Oh.
Wait, hold on.
They're like, mic's off. Like,
This tea wasn't that great.
let's go to Starbucks. How do we want to fit more of this in? And I think that's the thing with our generation as well, is we want to do more of these things, and we don't care if it's making money or not. We enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And so if we had something that was making money in the background, that was either facilitating that, or if it was just paying our bills, like whatever, I think we would be more apt to have more of these creative, innovative.
So I'm going to cross the line here because
Please.
it's not a political show. We've already
Okay.
established that. And that's part of the political conversation right
It is.
now, is making sure everyone has that minimum standard
Yeah.
in order to be able to do the things, because it's not about building anymore. At this point, it's about self-actualization and really developing who we are as people and be a little Star Trekky, exploring new worlds and all
Communist.
that, So but that's where
But
we are.
dreaming big.
Dreaming big.
People
We've
don't
created this.
even know how to dream anymore.
Yeah.
Like, again, whether it's your parents, your environment, your school, whatever you grew up, your religion, whatever, that was like, oh no, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, we grew up in Kansas City, and my brother was like, I want to be a star. And like, people are like, what does that even mean? Like,
Do you apply for that?
Yeah, exactly. Can I do that too? Like,
Qualifications.
yeah, exactly. But at the same time, then he narrowed it down as he got older. Granted, we grew up, with our dad owning a dance studio, so it wasn't too far-fetched for him to think that. But still, we lived in the Midwest, you know what I mean? And people were thinking, what does that even mean? Obviously, you're not going to do that here. So there were so many aspects to that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one, and it was exposure. Like, most people don't,
Right.
see it in the same thing with the concept of residual income. Most people's only exposure to that is when they got invited to their friend's barbecue, and then all of a sudden they're sitting through a 15-minute speech about how this water will change their lives.
Oh!
Multi-level marketing.
Yes. Those pyramids,
Hey, those pyramids have made a lot of people a lot of money. As we've talked about this before, there are some people that are amazing at that, and it is great, and like, they are literally living that
And it's money
thing.
that's changing their life that they never thought was even possible.
And they get to change other people's
Right.
lives, but it's not for everyone.
It's not.
Just like any way
Just
of
like
making
anything.
money or residual income or something, there are those opportunities out there. Go find one that works for you and then pursue it. But
Totally.
understand that it's going to get difficult. And then don't drop off and say, oh, my gut was telling me.
Right. Because it's almost like the easy route now is go to
Yeah.
school, get a degree, and get a job for 40 years. Like, that, there's no real, like, stepping out of your comfort zone in that. You do, for the most part, you're going to learn a couple things about yourself. You're going to go and get your degree. You're going to do your job. You're going to do it well. And you're going to move forward.
So it's
No?
it's funny because I actually never thought about it that way, that now getting a college degree is just what everyone's doing. Like, that is everyone's going into student debt, everyone's getting
That's it.
that is completely normal.
But what it
was
takes
more
for
or
us
less
is
normal.
growth.
Yeah, it was more or less normal when I was, but not nearly to this degree. Fun.
No, what
Where it
we're
was
going
so-
through is
yeah.
we need to have personal growth. We need to step out of our comfort zone. I don't know about you, but on a daily basis, there's always something that's kind of pushing me a little bit. And I encourage it, even though it's hard, even though some days I may be overstressed. I encourage it because I know it's leading to the person I want to be. And I don't feel like you said, that normal life that once is doing that anymore. You know what I mean? But this is not a lifestyle for everybody.
Right.
And I think that's the important point to realize too.
Totally.
Is
We're not trying to convince you to have this lifestyle.
But really, no, I'm just
there is no normal now.
There
and
is
that's
no
the other
normal.
thing. Now that we're so connected and we can have 5,000 Facebook friends and unlimited Instagram followers. It's one of those
That's
things
true.
where we can be exposed to everything.
Right. So that you're getting the opportunity.
Right.
People who would not normally get this opportunity to say, I can make money online, or I can make money doing this, or I don't have to go to school and I can still do this. Like, people are learning how to do graphic design and be amazing graphic designers from YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Like, that's an opportunity that was not prevalent or given to the generations before us.
Yeah.
So all we're saying is, like, the opportunity's there. You know what I mean?
And there's no shame in following the traditional path.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's a great path too. I always say if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, like, go to school. That's the only option at this point.
Well, so that's the other conversation about school, that, I don't want a doctor that learned how to be a doctor on YouTube.
That's true.
Like they're...
Just following what, my friend's doing it and she's super successful at it, so I can be too.
Anyone can do it.
Well,
No.
anyone can do it, but is that what you want to do?
Anyone can, but not everyone should.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's the thing, is we have so many more opportunities, which is allowing us to have so many more options, which is making it so much more difficult. And I'm a Libra,
Options are
so
scary.
Oh,
they're
yeah.
very scary.
Have you guys tried to pick out a toothbrush recently?
Right.
Like, honestly.
No, seriously. I talked to two people who they've been retired now for over 5 years. And they're like, I'm like, so how's life? What's going on? Are you guys traveling? What's going, they're still young and able to do things. And I'm like, they're like, there's just so many options. And I'm like, if you're saying that at your age, imagine what we're going through when we're still figuring out what we want to do with our lives. We're not even close to retirement. Like, yeah, the world has changed for everybody, not just us.
Yeah.
But we're just the ones up and coming in it.
Well, that's why I say, ADHD, ADD, whatever term we've settled on.
Right.
It's really just an evolutionary adaptation. Like,
Yeah.
being bombarded with so much information, having the ability to sift through it and pick the couple things that you might want to pay attention to later is so much more valuable in today's society than being able to deep learn something. But
That's
we
a
also need
positive way
another
to look
part
at
of
it.
It
I've never heard that, but you're crafty, sir.
That's it.
Why, thank you.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so obviously we know we can continue and talk about all this forever. But is there something that, the whole point of this podcast is going to be for people to share the links and to start, our hashtag is start the conversation, discussing, it's cute, right?
That's cute.
Yeah.
Just discussing all kinds of things that people maybe didn't have access to because, they didn't know what was available to them.
Yeah.
In particular, all the people like us that have a lot of accomplishments, and I feel honored to be in your company. That we still are trying to figure it out day by day.
Yeah.
The chapters continue. We have new ones. We get some things that we want. We get some things that we didn't want. How do we sift through that? What would be your best advice for, I would say specifically, our generation of people that are going through what we're going through? Besides the fact that they're not alone, but what's the best advice you can give them on maybe how to move forward if they're having a rough day or something?
Yeah, just go for it. Build the plane as you're flying it.
Oh.
That's it.
That's
All
exciting.
Because the only thing...
Bring your parachute.
Yeah, bring a parachute.
Yeah.
But the only thing that limits you really is you.
Yeah.
And you can really truly do anything. Like, that's not just a cliche. That's not just a motivational speaker's favorite phrase. Like, that's for real. And anything keeps expanding and expanding. So what we consider to be impossible today is going to be normal next week. And just go for it.
Because someone has to start the trend.
Someone has to do it.
Right? Someone has to go first. What about you?
So building on that a little bit and touching on something that we had talked about earlier about folding the end into the current, just start doing it. Just exactly like Will just said, that first step. I always like to say it from a project management standpoint of like, you had your plan of A to B. Well, the thing is, when you get to A1, that first step, B has now moved to B1. And it's changed, it's shifted. So every step along the way, it will be something different. But as long as you trust yourself and follow who you're supposed to be being and who you really want to be, you can listen to your parents' advice, listen to your friends. But at the end of the day, you know exactly who you want to and are going to be. And every step of the way helps you uncover that more and more. So each step that you take moving forward uncovers that. And so when you get to B, it's actually like a Z or whatever comes after Z. And it will be something completely different, but you will have done each one of those steps along the way, learned from them, and grown from them. But each one of those steps is an obstacle. One of my favorite books is The Obstacle is the Way. And every challenge is helping you uncover who you are.
That's so awesome. Well, I can tell you for sure that this podcast is something when we said we were going to do this 3 years ago, and we got all caught up in positive things in our life. Like, I do have to say, nothing that really negative was pulling us down to not do this, so that's good. We were all thriving. But, you know, there's a part of me that I come from a ballroom dance background of being, you know, everything has to be perfection and every hair in place and all this stuff. And so I thought a lot about how I wanted to go about doing this, and now I'm like, cool, I laid out the plan and I'm just gonna do it. And you know, everything may not be perfect. I may be sitting on 5 pillows and that's okay.
I think it's 7 at this point.
You know, I've already seen how this is gonna help people. Like, I've already seen people like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're doing this. Like, and I'm like, if I wait until it's the perfect time or the perfect way or the perfect whatever, it'll never happen.
Yep.
And B, how is that going to make it any different than this? If this is still going to be just as powerful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So just tacking on to what you guys were saying, I'm just doing it. Let's do it, guys. The year of the yes.
Yes, I like that.
2020.
Who is it? Shia LaBeouf? Just do it!
Oh, on that note.
And theme.
And